Hello and welcome, I'm Peasant and I'm here today to tell you how to beat Prussia. This is Prussia here, right here. Look at those rules. Not that many rules. They're a wonderful adversary. I've been playing a lot against Prussia just to try and crystallize my ideas about how to beat them. You'll notice basically that all they're doing is changing the invader deck. You start with an extra town and you add a town to a land without towns in the escalation. The most minimal rules load of any adversary, definitely the first adversary I'd recommend playing against once you want to maybe start trying to tone up the difficulty a little bit. And I've got a few general principles and I'll go through them, and then at the end I'll reveal the best spirit for, well, probably the best spirit for beating Prussia. The main thing you want to do against Prussia is you want to hit hard, hit early. Part of the reason I've got Winds of Rust naturally behind me is that it's a grim pitch. You can't, well, if you're playing on a high enough difficulty level, it's going to be hard to keep the island pristine against Prussia because they move really fast. And the first thing that they're going to do is they might throw one of these at you really early on. If you're against Prussia 6, they'll throw one of these double invader lands at you early on. It's going to be hard to keep all that blight from coming down. So it is a race with Prussia. None of the other adversaries are really quite this intense. You've got to hit hard, and you've got to sometimes be just smashing, placing blight. I do have some playthroughs kicking around that do demonstrate this. So yeah, a bit of a mild point, but things like using poison land is a major, does a lot of damage for not much energy, but does place blight. It's fine. You've got to just get the damage done. Okay, so hit hard, hit early is the first principle. Okay, next one is don't stall. Okay, so if you're playing a spirit like Earth, you've got years of perfect stillness, or you may have drafted cards like this that basically mean you can kind of not worry about, it means you can not worry about a ravage or something like that. With the exception of paralyzing fright that just generates a lot of fear, I would try not to do too much of this because it's so easy against Prussia to have to go, okay, we've got the island stabilized, it's fine. Oh no, we've run out of time. Because when you try and draw that explore card and there isn't one there, you lose. And I have lost like that a fair number of times. So you've got to not stall. The other flip side of that is possibly you might want to take mages earlier than you might usually take them, because you're going to need to do some damage, right? You're going to need to gain some fear. You're going to need to do that damage. So yeah, if you can afford a major, and most mages are, 3 or 4 energy. So if you've got a bit of energy saved up, I would consider doing that. Okay, here's a really powerful tip against Prussia and against any adversary where you get towards that stage 3, but Prussia is the one where you're most likely going to encounter it, is when you've got doubled up lands. So here's an example. They've got their early stage 3 here, and then following that, they've got mountain. So you've got mountain into mountain. In that situation, it's going to go ravage and then build in the same land. So if you can set up a Dahan counterattack, that is, you're doing a lot of work with that, especially if you can clear that land, particularly because then if you do clear the land on counterattack, then that's a land that doesn't have a build in it and therefore doesn't have a ravage. So that's if you're struggling, if there's a lot going on, that's a good thing to really focus on, is those Dahan counters. Yeah, and that's true against all adversaries, but it's, are you in stage 3? So for example, here you've got jungle into jungle, but that's definitely something to work for. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about power choices. So when you're going against Prussia, I really like getting, because of the effectiveness of the land into land thing, I really like getting a defend card. So here are some very standard kind of defend cards to set that up, or maybe a Dahan move. I didn't drag one of those out. I would also be wary of cards that I'm otherwise generally quite into, which is blight removal cards. You don't really want to be getting into that because you probably won't have time. So again, it's that don't stall too much. But one thing I do really favor against Prussia is fear cards. So cheap fear minor powers. You notice that there are some fear, these two, oh no, hard to work in reverse. These two are also kind of defend cards that gain fear. Very keen on that, because if you look at Prussia, you'll notice that their fear decks, these are not very big fear decks. So if you can rush through there, that helps a lot. The trouble with beating Prussia is that you're often going to be in a position where you want to prevent the builds so that you don't get overwhelmed on blight and ravages. However, by preventing a lot of builds, then you don't have so much stuff to destroy, and you may not be destroying so much, and then you're not generating as much fear. So it's good to supplement with some fear generation. That's definitely that for me feels like a non-obvious tip. I really stand by it, because the thing is as well is that fear cards are really going to help you, because often with Prussia they've got a lone explorer that's going to build and things like that, and fear cards are often very helpful with those kinds of odd explorers lying around. Oh yeah, another one is that, of course, because they don't add special rules about building in lands with no buildings like England or other things, cards like this become very good. They gain you a load of fear, but that pushing of a town or explorer could mean that that land is now not a land you have to worry about for ravages, etc. So cards like this also become pretty high value picks in my opinion. Okay, so I think that's what I'm going to talk about with power choices. The final thing on my notes it's a slightly obvious one, but if you get an event like this one here that gives you the option of removing stage 1 and stage 2 cards, don't do it. You're going to have trouble avoiding running out of time at the best of times. I mean, unless maybe your game situation is really, really under control, but it's going to be a quick game regardless. Okay, so those are my tips. If you've got any tips specifically against Prussia that I've missed, please let me know down in the comments. And we're going to reveal the best spirit for beating Prussia. If you want to know, it's this. It's the wonderful Thunder Speaker. Thunder Speaker I personally find Thunder Speaker very hard to manage, but the fact that they're so good at moving Dahan around means that they could set up to take advantage of those kind of doubled up lands, which even if you don't get them when the first stage 3 card shows up, you will get them later on. They are also an incredibly powerful spirit. All of their cards actually do something useful. So against a chunk of adversaries, maybe your sudden ambush will become worthless, still good against Prussia. You know, they're a very strong spirit anyway, if you can handle the spatial puzzle. But they are so good against Prussia that even I am reasonably comfortable with them. So that's what I'd say is my pick for if you're looking to, if you really want to beat Prussia at high difficulty. Yeah, so that about wraps up the video. Like the video if you like the video, and until next time, keep it spiritual.